Hello there, my beautiful and lovely internet friends. As we dive in today, a really quick point of clarification. I'm going to be using the word trigger throughout the rest of this video. I want to make really clear that when I'm talking about that, I'm referring to a PTSD trigger, as in something that brings up a flashback, a panic attack, intrusive thoughts, things of that nature. So often we hear the word triggered referring to anything that's remotely or even mildly upsetting to someone. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about trauma triggers as it refers to PTSD. With that intro out of the way, hello there, thank you for visiting my channel. I am delighted to see you here, and today I wanted to talk about having a trigger 9 years after the trauma that I experienced. The reason I wanted to share this is because a couple weeks ago I had a pretty significant trigger. I'm gonna explain some of the details, but I was kind of seeing things that weren't entirely there. Bear with me on this one, but the way that I was able to process it and get through it is so different than how I felt even a few years ago. So I wanted to share this story today as perhaps a little note of hope to those of us who still deal with triggers, especially if you're kind of earlier on in your journey and those triggers are really severe and overwhelming. Also, just so you know, I am 9 days post-op on a sinus surgery, so if like my face looks a little bit different and I sound a little bit different, I am still healing, that is why. A couple weeks ago, my husband and I were at home and we were joking around in the kitchen. We were just being silly and fun and funny and having a good time and laughing, and my husband did something that was completely innocent, that was not crossing any boundaries, it was not bad, it was just funny and fun and went along with the conversation and triggered one of the most overwhelming flashbacks I've ever had. If you don't know what a flashback is, it's basically where you are brought back to the moment in time you are experiencing something traumatic. Your body and your brain feels like you are right there again, you're feeling the same sensations, you're feeling the same emotion. So when Brian, my husband, did this thing that triggered a flashback, all of a sudden, I was back in the house where the worst of my trauma occurred, and that house had pink carpet everywhere. My house has wood floors everywhere. But when I looked around my house, I was aware of the fact that my eyes were not seeing pink carpet, but it was like my brain was interpreting everything as covered in pink carpet. It felt like the layout of our house was the layout of that house. Honestly, it was one of the most like visceral, overwhelming triggers I've ever had. Like I was right back there. I was feeling the same kind of panic and the same like, I have to get out of here. And years ago, when I had these kind of triggers, there was an immediate reaction, like full panic attack, running out of the house, whatever I needed to do to get out of that situation. But now, after years of counseling and working through things and journaling and focusing on my healing, more than anything, what has been accomplished, the time between the trigger and my reaction has been lengthened just a little bit, just enough for me to be aware of what is happening, for me to have words to communicate. Hey, Brian, I am experiencing a flashback right now. I just need you to know that is what's going on. It's not you. Here is what I'm feeling. And before, I didn't even have words in those moments to explain anything to anyone. It was just like pure panic and feeling like a crazy person. And in this situation, with the tools that I've acquired over the years, I was able to somewhat calmly be like, hey, this is what's going on. I am freaking out. A panic attack is probably imminent and we need to leave now. Is that cool with you? Is that cool? Is that cool if we just if we leave right now? Being able to be very aware of what was occurring, like understanding the fact I experienced a trigger, I am experiencing a flashback, that is what is going on. I'm not crazy. This is an understandable reaction to past trauma, and it's very legitimate, it's valid, it's real, and it needs to be addressed, and that's okay. Being able to have that presence of mind at the moment something is happening did not happen automatically for me. It took years and years of practice. Even as I was experiencing this trigger, as I was very frightened, very scared, feeling so vulnerable and scared, I was still able to articulate, this is what's happening, acknowledge what it was, understand that it's a trigger, it's a flashback, it is going to pass, but right now it feels very real. What do I need to do to address that? So what I felt like I needed to do was get out of the house. Our house is safe. It's not the house everything happened in, but it felt like it was at that moment. So like I said, I expressed to my husband, can we go for a drive? Can we leave? Can we just get out for a few minutes? And we did that, and within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I was good. Going to a familiar drive-through, getting some coffee, just breathing, listening to music, out of the house. I was able to calm down, regulate my nervous system, breathe normally, and be able to return home without all of the remnants of that panic and of that flashback. And that is another thing that has changed over the years. Previously, over the years, if I ran into a really bad trigger, it's something that would affect me for at least the rest of the day, sometimes days after. And it's hard to explain how real Flashbacks can feel, but they can really mess you up. And so to be able to bring my system back to somewhat normal after 20 or 30 minutes is a huge improvement and something I've been working on for a long time. And honestly, in so many ways, how I was able to handle it and think through it felt like a victory, felt like a huge step forward, because man, those things used to mess me up for days, understandably so. And now, grand total, it was maybe an hour of one day and I was able to continue on somewhat normally. And that's so cool. I honestly didn't think anything like that was ever gonna be remotely possible. In the first few years of living in the aftermath of my trauma, I was very convinced that what I was experiencing then is what I would be experiencing forever, because as we're healing, it's really hard to see that progress. It's really hard to look back and be like, I'm doing better than I was before. I think one of the side effects of dealing with mental health issues, mental illness, depression, anxiety, PTSD, is that it traps you in thinking and what you're feeling right now is how it's always gonna be, and that definitely kills hope, because if what you're feeling now is awful and it's gonna go on forever, why would you even stick around, right? Fighting that thought was one of the hardest battles I have ever conquered. Healing does take time. It can feel agonizingly slow, but it happens. You get to a better place. You're able to gain new tools to cope and to process and to move through things and to become who you want to be and handle things in a way that you prefer to handle them, to get support and resources when you need it, to know what's going on when it's happening. There are ways through the horrific things that we experience, even if it doesn't feel so in the moment. So I wanted to share this story because looking back, how I responded in that moment a couple weeks ago was vastly different than how I would have experienced something like that even a few years ago. And that is so hopeful even to me when I run into these things. Like, all the work that I've done wasn't for nothing. I wasn't telling myself a lie when I told myself it can get better, because it can and it does. So if you, my lovely watcher, are someone who is dealing with some kind of mental health issue, mental illness, depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, grief, whatever it may be, know that you are not alone. You're not weird for experiencing what you're experiencing. You're not the only one, and it can and it will get better. It takes time, it takes work, but it absolutely will not feel like this forever. I can promise you that. There is hope and it's worth fighting through. And with that being said, did I spill my coffee? No, I didn't. We're good. I thought I heard it spill. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here because my sinuses are starting to tell me it's a good idea if I don't talk anymore. Thanks to surgery recovery. Thankfully, I am feeling a lot better. Surgery went great to everyone who's been asking. Thank you. If you're interested for more specific updates on that, I'll link my main channel up above, Footless Joe. But thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to this video here today. Thank you to my patrons who make all of these videos possible and choose to financially support this channel and join the community there. There's a link on screen if you're interested. And to you watching this video right now, thank you so much for spending a few minutes out of your day here with me today. You could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else, and you chose to hang out with me for a few minutes, and I really appreciate that. I love you guys. I'm thinking about you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.